Yes, that's right, it's not clickbait. I retired myself for about 90 days with zero income coming into my bank account. And in this video, I want to go over some of the things that I learned about myself personally and also financially when I took on this period of essentially early retirement.
Oh yeah.
Hey there guys, how's it going? For those of you who don't know, my name is Lee. I occasionally make finance YouTube videos. You can see on my videos there, it's not as consistent as I probably like, but also, like I said, I was taking a bit of a retirement hiatus. Now, for many of you guys who are wondering, how in the world did this guy retire for about 3 months and do, well, absolutely nothing? Well, here's a bit of context and the backstory. Now, for the last couple of years, I have actually been working in the higher education space. So that includes your learning centers, TAFEs, universities, colleges, whatever you want to call them, helping coordinate a couple of programs, and found it quite fulfilling and enjoyable, all that type of stuff. Essentially, the Rona, the pandemic came around, and the business ultimately had to reshuffle the way it did things to mitigate some of the risks and the cost that it was taking on because there was a lack of revenue that was coming in. So essentially, I was given the two options. I basically had to take a pay cut, or alternatively, they would give me a redundancy payout and make my role redundant. And of course, your boy opted for the pay cut. Just kidding, obviously, how else did I retire?
Got him!
No, I opted to take the redundancy payout because there are a lot of tax benefits, and also it was a good option given the short amount of time that I had actually served at the institution. And weighing up the options wasn't too hard for me. I essentially wanted to take the payout to pursue something a little bit different, also to experience semi-retirement, and also to use the money for investments. Of course, what else am I going to do with the money, right?
Mr. Marsh, don't worry. We can just transfer money from your account into a portfolio with your son, and it's gone! This line is for people who have money with the bank only. Please step...
So anyways, having achieved pseudo-retirement, semi-retirement, whatever you want to call it, there were definitely some learnings that took place and a bit of questioning about my own fulfillment and what I wanted to do. But before that, of course, this is a finance channel, so let's get into the financial learnings and some of the things that were debunked for me. Now, thinking back through this retirement period, the biggest learning for me financially was knowing that I could survive off capital as opposed to surviving off a consistent cash flow. Now, for some of you guys, that would be like, well, no duh, if I had $1 million, of course I could survive off $1 million over a set period of years or whatever.
$1 million.
But if you're a finance head, I'm sure you've heard of something called the FIRE movement. No, not that type of FIRE. It's actually financial independence, retire early. So for those who want to achieve FIRE, they want to be financially independent enough so that they can retire early. And for many people, including myself, that involves living rather minimalistic. And that's not to say that you can't enjoy life, but just being more conscious about your spending. Secondly, saving that money. And thirdly, investing. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the FIRE movement, you might be asking, how do you achieve this number? What is this financial independent number, and how did I get to that number? Well, to do this, first you have to figure out what your actual burn rate is. And a burn rate isn't how quickly your cash is burning. Well, yeah, it kind of is how quickly your cash is burning. Now, generally, to calculate this burn rate, you have to figure out what your expenses are, either on a daily, a weekly, or a monthly basis, to then multiply to what your burn rate would be on an annual basis. So yearly, how much is it going to cost annually for you to sustain the lifestyle you want to have? And for me, that actually turned out to be about $25,000 to $28,000 annually, which included mortgages, insurances, all the main things, and also some discretionary spending, because I am not going to be eating every single cooked meal at home. It's a bit of a stretch. So now that you have your annual burn rate, what you need to do is multiply that number by 4%, and you'll get a total number, insert number here, that comes out to, could be in the millions, could be in the hundreds of thousands, depending on where you're at. But for me, that is $625,000 for me to draw down $25,000 for the next 25 years to live off. But that's not all. The great thing is what you can do with that principal amount is actually have it invested into either an ETF or an LIC or some sort of big, broad index fund so that you can actually have it compound year over year. Now, that's more of an American approach and has been very popularized through people like Mr. Money Mustache and in many other FIRE blog posts that have come in afterwards. Now, as for Australians, you can either receive rents or you can receive dividends, which leads me to the misconception that I was talking about. I always believed that I needed to generate passive income in order to, well, retire. But actually, it was rather the opposite. I was actually okay living off the principal that I had received during this redundancy payout, because essentially this payout should have covered more than a year's worth of expenses. And well, it definitely did, because I used about 80% of the money to go and invest in different markets, share market and crypto in particular. And if anything, something that I learned was when I was living off a fixed amount of capital, it actually made me much more conscious about the money that I was spending, instead of, well, had I received a recurring form of income in the form of dividends, rents, or even income that you would get from your employment. But now that I've learned that about myself financially and jumped over this hurdle of, having to have a recurring income as opposed to just living off a fixed amount of capital, is that going to change my approach? Absolutely not. No, because for me personally, I still want to achieve financial independence through receiving a recurring income in the form of dividends and the franking credits that they bring along. And I want to do that because I don't want to be entirely relying on drawing down from the principal, which can fluctuate in price because of the share price. And yes, I guess you could say that about the dividends as well, but that's more of free cash flow that's coming in because of the assets, as opposed to me relying on the value of the asset either remaining the same or going up in value. So that essentially was my learning financially. Now, in terms of the personal and mental learning, I know a little bit intense for a financial video, just checking to see who's still watching. Anyways, back to it. Now, when we think about retirement, the imagery that comes to the front of people's mind is generally sitting around the beach, traveling, which good luck with that, doing nothing, sitting on the couch, Netflix and chilling. If you're into gardening, then just doing a bunch of gardening. If you're a foodie, going out and enjoying food. Doing leisurely things that you would have normally done, but having much more time to do it. And for me, that came in the form of what is now a 8-month-old puppy. But seriously, although I enjoyed all the free time that I have to look after the puppy and, exercise and do other things, if I didn't have to look after the puppy and a few other hobbies and stuff that I had to do around the house, I honestly think I would have lost my mind. And to be honest, being within this retirement period actually ate away at my will to work at anything or pursue anything else, especially when I didn't need to, and I was actively trying not to, just to experience what it would actually be like to take on retirement. Anyways, after this period, I actually took on extra studies. I took on a master's, and gonna see where this takes me in my next part of my life. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That was just a little bit of an insight onto what it was like for me experiencing early retirement, as many of us strive to work towards. Trust me, it's not that great. It's what the rich old guys say it is. It's just boring and mind-numbing, and it really eats away at you personally, like to achieve or to do anything else. And I mean, for you it might be different, but I wanted to experience what it actually was like just doing nothing, and sitting around and just watching YouTube, enjoying content and all those sorts of things. Anyways, guys, if you made it to this part of the video, give me some emojis in the comment section down below. I hope you guys have a great and wonderful day, week, month, whichever period. Anyways, I'll catch you guys later. Cheers.